If I open up my folders in the Catalog tab, I can see that I have my file geodatabase, and I have a feature data set, which when I click it, it's empty because there's nothing in there yet. And one of the reasons you want to create that extra folder is after I have finished importing my data and put my MXD in this folder, this is easy to zip up and share. So right now I've got my shape files, and I'm going to drag them to the map window. And they came in. If I go to the list by source, you can see that they are coming from the folder called Oregon Data. And if I open up the properties, you can see that it's a shapefile feature class, and that it is not a projected data set. So you can tell that when you look at the map. That's pretty distorted. And it's a geographic coordinate system, so it's not a projection. The angular units are degrees, so there's no linear units. So this would not be an appropriate format or coordinate system if I wanted to do any analysis. The interesting thing is that my data frame, my table of contents, has now been set to this same unprojected coordinate system because that was the first layer that I added. So your data frame, your layer will always default to the first layer that you add. So I want to put those data in the feature data set. The feature data set has a different coordinate system. It has a projected coordinate system, and I set that at the beginning. So you would think you could copy and paste that in there, but you can't because they're different coordinate systems. So I have to do an import, and every once in a while I run into an error that I've not been able to figure out why, and it seems if I reboot the computer sometimes that will go away. But I can import into my feature data set, or I can export from my table of contents. So sometimes if one doesn't work, the other will. So I'm going to start with clicking here and doing an import. Hold on, I'm going to move this over for you. And I'm just going to do a single to start with. So I'm going to import the single feature class. Okay, so the feature I want to import, I'm just going to start with schools. And I want it to go into the Oregon Data feature class. Yeah, that was probably not helpful that I named those both Oregon Data. But you can see this says Songer 05 Geodatabase and then the Oregon Data. So that's where I want it to go. And I'm going to call it Oregon Schools. And this shows me the fields. If I didn't want to choose the name, I could select that and then not import that, but I want them all, so I'm just going to say OK, and hopefully this will work. It did. So now you see in my source I have the geodatabase, I have the featured data set, and I have Oregon Schools. my data frame is still set to the unprojected coordinate system. And we'll fix that in a minute. So I'm going to remove this so that I don't have that in my data. And now I'm going to export the counties. So we'll just do it two different ways. And I want it to go, oh my goodness, where is all of this? This is in this folder. If I choose here, it will just go beside the feature data set and not into the feature data set. And if I do that, the coordinate system will not be changed on Oregon counties. However, if I put it inside the feature data set, so it says look in feature data set, the data will be transformed to the new coordinate system. Okay, so I'm going to remove this, and it's still not going to change because my data frame is set to the first layer that I added. Now I can change my data frame by going to Properties and choosing a coordinate system of the layers that are in the data frame. So that changes my coordinate system. If I look in here now, I have my Oregon counties, and you'll see if I look at the properties here, it has the Oregon statewide coordinate system. If I look at the properties here, this should still be the geographic coordinate system. And because this is in a projected coordinate system, I will have a linear unit, which is feet, which means that it's going to be more accurate, a whole lot more accurate if I want to do any data. So now I'm going to save this MXD. Really? You're not going to make me go through all of this? All right. Again, I want to be inside that folder that I want to zip and beside the geodatabase. Do not put it inside the geodatabase. And I don't remember what I asked you to name this, but let's talk about naming it. Let's try that. Exercise 5, Songer. So I'm going to save that. And then if I close my folder, you'll see that everything is embedded in that. It's not setting outside my folder. The last thing you want to do is in your map document properties, you want to make sure to restore the relative path names. That way when you zip this folder and send it to me, I will be able to open it without having to reconnect your data. And I'm going to save, and I'm going to close this down. And now I should see the geodatabase, which has a feature data set in it. I should see the MXD. And so this is really easy now to zip up and attach in Moodle.